really hope you don't eat fish.
The dietary sources of aluminum that we would receive, which is mostly like going to be cruciferous vegetables.
In your food.
Again, let's
Right.
compare this to something.
Wait. Let me get a little thing in here. All right. How do you feel about aluminum in the air? Right? Because they're through the production, through almost. Like, do you live out in the middle of the woods?
There's not aluminum floating around in the air, dumb fuck.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there isn't.
No, Socrates, stop memeing. Come on.
All right. Well, I was going to bring in the.
Can I just make a point that's relevant here? That's relevant to what the analogy is. Essentially, look at the radiation. Okay, radiation is you're receiving a constant dose at all times, right? We don't talk about there is a safe level of radiation in the sense that there's an absolute boundary, right? There's a certain level of radiation that will give you a certain effect. More radiation is bad, but there's a certain tolerance that you can take, right? It's the same with anything, like any form of metal that you accept into the bloodstream, okay? You can say, there's no such thing as a safe level. Well, actually, there probably would be, in the sense that you wouldn't notice any effect, the same way that you could.
I said in the brain. There's no safe level.
It's irrelevant whether it is in the brain or not. You can have radiation in the brain.
Well, and
there's radiation around you.
Stargate Monkey, what you said was wrong. Actually, the body has defense naturally occurring elemental metals. Aluminum is not in its elemental state, and thus the body has. It's
irrelevant. My point is, to compare it to radiation. Like, okay, you can receive a certain dosage of radiation from a different area on the planet to another one. Okay, and
I'm not confused at what you're fucking saying, dumb fuck. I'm just saying.
I'm saying your point is meaningless. It's meaningless. If you say no level is safe, you have to justify it.
Can eat a plutonium will kill you because.
Yeah, dude, Ace, you're roboting really bad, man.
Look, Stargate, I don't understand what you're trying to say. So I can get that someone says that it's preferable not to have it, right? I think that's all they're saying. It's preferable not to have it.
Stop driving.
Why are they just ignoring the fact that there is a level that you can have in your system that would have
when you're taking a vaccine, your body doesn't have the chance to even try to filter it out. It goes straight into your brain.
Because I would say, even if you grant that, it goes straight to your brain, it's there permanently.
Do you have to talk?
Okay, I've posted information about mercury. If you eat any fish, you probably have more mercury in fish than you would have like in any vaccine. So if you've ever eaten fish, you've got mercury in your brain then.
Mercury in a vaccine isn't really the biggest problem. Aluminum is a big one. And then if you look at the elements identified table, there is a whole shitload of metal compounds. And I mean, some of them are like, there's a copper compound in there. Now, copper is an essential trace mineral.
Copper actually kills bacteria.
But you don't want that copper compound crossing the blood-brain barrier. You want it.
Again, why? Say it's bad, but you don't give me the effect that it will cause, and then what degree that you'll notice any effect.
Right. There's a lot of different effects. The point is you don't want them in your brain.
Yeah, but just
because they don't serve any beneficial function in the brain.
If there's lots of effects, give me the top one.
Let's just take aluminum, dumb fuck. Aluminum deposits are widely considered. Do you need to talk some more? Do you need? I don't know.
Maybe you do. Do I need to talk? Maybe you need to call me some dumb fuck again.
Just stop getting upset at him.
All right, go ahead, dumb fuck. Talk some more.
He's trying not to make you upset, but you.
I know there's something you want to say. You got a lot to say, don't you? You're a smart man. Go ahead.
So as I was saying about aluminum in the air, right?
It's
everywhere.
So
no, you're right. It's not in the air. It's not in the air.
Aluminum deposits are now widely considered to be one of the primary factors for the development of Alzheimer's. Also, people who have found to have elevated levels of aluminum in their blood have lower IQs. It's kind of like lead. You can consume lead and it won't kill you. There is no safe level of lead in the body. It is a toxin. It always has a deleterious effect. And if it gets deposited in your brain, you will suffer deficits. Now,
so
if you're only getting a couple little atoms here and there,
you're saying any amount. You're saying any amount
is it going to be noticeable? No. Right, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about taking a concentration of aluminum, which is non-trivial, injecting it
if it's
directly into your
non-trivial,
bloodstream, it crossing the blood-brain
Prove it's
barrier
non-trivial
and
though. What's the
depositing-
non-trivial amount? You're saying that every amount is non-trivial.
Give the amount. That'll help it.
Yeah.
That'll stop.
Yeah, every amount is non-trivial when you're talking about aluminum. Yeah.
Like literally one atom of aluminium in your brain is going to cause an effect on you.
I
That's
think the difference
measurable.
between what you two are saying.
That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm saying that.
No, you're trying to be a fucking faggoty pedant, and I'm trying to talk about
Veyd,
functional problems presented by vaccines.
Come on, baby.
If you're accusing me of
Yeah,
me being a pedant,
one atom
right?
is not going to be bad, but the concentrations in vaccines are biologically significant, especially because vaccines are administered so young in life and in so many.
Do you have
You take
a
a lot of
source
vaccines-
on that?
So, like you said, so we can know then how much that is in that vaccine. So,
and
like,
it's not just aluminum, as I said.
He dropped a paper about the components, so we have that amounts. We have the amounts fine, but we want to know about the effects, right, of aluminum on brains.
And it's not just aluminum. There's a whole. I don't even know what some of these compounds are. I mean, here's silicon, aluminum, iron, a compound of silicon, aluminum, and iron together. Oh, by the way, you don't want that either. Like that compound. Not only is it, you don't want iron in your brain.
Give us a list of all the things we don't want. How about that?
And
there's
in
a
fact,
lot to be fair.
high concentrations of iron in your blood.
That's really
actually
just rattle off a list of everything we don't want in our brains.
You certainly don't want elemental iron in your fucking brain.
Oh God, no.
Okay. I'm gonna be really, really short and very quick. Some diseases and some metals you actually need in your body to fight off other diseases. Do you know what happened when the Europeans went to America? We basically killed off the local Indians because they didn't have like an immune system.
So fucking retarded, man.
Well, no, this is how this fucking worked. Look this up. Look up history. Look up about biology.
Okay.
Like we are
listen, dumbass.
like the Black Death and all that. For fuck's sake,
components of a vaccine are not nutritional sources. You fucking idiot.
I didn't say that. I sort of said you can actually gain immune system. You know what poison is? Poison is about an amount. You know you get poisoned by having too much water. Anything's poisonous to a certain amount. Poison is done by how much you can actually have of this stuff until it fucking kills you.
Infants get more aluminum in their system, fucking their daily diet.
I'm just getting a bit passionate about it. I'm literally getting bored. I should probably just move on.
I don't think. Yeah, I can understand, but I don't think going off on another tangent is going to help explain the point.
One thing about aluminum that makes it particularly more poisonous than mercury or any of these as I mentioned earlier, is that is not really. Gosh darn. Sorry, I'm sitting in traffic. It's not found in its elemental form. Aluminum is always bound usually to silicon or something like that. And elemental aluminum, high exposures of elemental aluminum in our recent diets, I think, can cause a lot of problems because our body has no natural defenses against elemental aluminum, unlike lead or mercury, which our bodies do have some natural defense. Like I said, this is why uranium and plutonium, which is just one atom over, you'll die because plutonium isn't found naturally occurring elementally.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned multiple times, there's a difference between consuming something through your mouth, it passing through your digestive system, being filtered by your digestive system, being filtered by your kidneys and liver, and then going into your bloodstream. There's a big fucking difference between that and injecting these things directly into your bloodstream and then crossing the blood-brain barrier. And by the way, whoever said that your dietary intake of aluminum is higher than in a vaccine, you're wrong. Unless you're eating fucking a lot of shit.
No, actually, I said infants get more fucking intake of aluminum in their daily diet. Well, not their day, but overall in their diet than they do in fucking injections of a vaccine.
I would like to know exactly, is it actually aluminium or is it aluminium compound?
Actually, look it up, because I've looked it up.
Really? Where?
Veyd, go ahead and look up something for once in your life. Instead of just speaking a bunch of bullshit.
I think one of the things, if you ever have been to a third world country where vaccines are not available and you've seen massive outbreaks of measles and other diseases, it would rather change your mind on how you view vaccines, because it's
well, generally
rapid.
speaking, the transmission of diseases, of communicable diseases, is because of bad hygiene.
Sure, but Veyd, are the amounts, right, that you get from vaccines, from a vaccine injection, are these actually significant? Are there studies that show that people actually have higher rates of illnesses that result from these, or is this just about there being some aluminum in your head that actually has no consequence? Is there a significant effect or not?
He might be looking it up right now, or he might be talking.
Well, if the whole point is that vaccines are bad because they cause you to get aluminum in your head, right? Then he'd have to show that actually.
I've been asking him for that information this entire time, but he's given me.
You can agree with the statement that, look, having some aluminum, you don't want it there, right? And yet still understand the rationale of having the vaccine. It's what's the tipping point of the amount, the concentration of the aluminum in the vaccine at which it becomes no longer a benefit to take that vaccine.
I agree. And that's the definition of what poison is. It's the definition of like how much you have to take of a certain substance until it becomes dangerous. That's the very definition of what a poison is. Like everything is pretty much poisonous if you have too much of it. But if you just sort of say, oh, okay, this is poisonous, like you could get poisoned by water. So should we just like stop complete all intake of water? Because if you drink too much water, that can kill you. So because water could kill you if you drink too much, should we completely avoid that? That's what it seems like his argument is. His argument is, yes, if you take this, if you have too much of it, it can kill you. But guess what? Water can as well.
But he's not going to respond to that though, because he sees it's so absurd a comparison that it isn't valid, even though it can be. It's not. Well,
that's what poison. Yeah, but that's what poison is.
I understand your point.
Yeah.
By explaining it in that term with that analogy, it's not going to click with him, because he's going to think, well.
Does Veyd know why we actually put aluminum into our vaccines?
Yeah, dumbass. They're a fucking preservative.
Yeah, they arrest the deterioration.
A preservative.
Yeah, they're there to stop the new microbes from breaking apart and then being able to activate once they're in the bloodstream.
They're also in a adjuvant. They activate the immune system and makes it work fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not exactly. It's not pure aluminium either. It's an aluminium compound, which I'd like to point out, because I don't understand. Is he talking about aluminium the element, or is he talking about aluminium compound?
I mean, Jesus Christ! Like, if you want to talk about food, do you know, like in America, you actually treat your chickens with chlorine? Chlorine.
Pink,
do you reckon?
Give us some of your pet peeves to do with like you seem to know a lot about the food and stuff, and like what's bad.
I'm diverse in a lot. Well, I got a diverse interest in all sorts of stuff, so you can bug me with anything.
Yeah,
but like,
stuff. What's the worst?
No. Well, the worst thing, but this is worldwide, is the overuse of like steroids, not steroids, antibiotics. We're basically hit to the stage like we got certain antibiotics that will pretty much cure most diseases or outbreaks of viruses. We're now on like a very best antibiotic, and a lot of countries are using these to vaccinate animals so they don't get any disease in it. Unfortunately, there is a few animals where you can get like a virus that can cross to like different, so like swine flus, was it a chicken flu? Like there's certain diseases that can actually cross over to humans. If they do cross over, like if we have one today,
Veyd has posted a link.
Yeah, we don't have like an antibiotic that could actually fight that off. That's my biggest pet peeve, using antibiotics willy-nilly.
Also, Veyd said that what I said wasn't true, and here's the fucking thing that says that while infants receive about 4.4 milligrams of aluminum in the first 6 months of life from vaccines, they receive more than that in their diet. Breastfed infants ingest about 7. Formula-fed infants ingest about 38.
Yeah, breastfed babies.
You're shit on faggot.
No, I'm not shit on fucking retard.
I said that was wrong, dumb fuck.
Yeah, it is wrong. It is wrong. It is wrong in the case of my family. Let me explain to you, dumbass.
No, at least Veyd's swallowing his pride.
I'm not swallowing my pride.
No, we know you're
Most women use deodorant, and that deodorant contains aluminum, and that aluminum gets deposited in the tissues of the breast and ends up in breast milk. My wife doesn't use aluminum-containing deodorants. So my child being breastfed is not going to receive anywhere near that amount of aluminum.
Veyd, that seems like the biggest conspiracy theory I've ever heard. You've got a wife. Now, everything you said, I'm going to call that out.
That was great.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being a bit of a dick, but dry
That's
humour, like
breaks the tension a bit, I think.
I'm reading Veyd's
Pin guy out of left
picture.
field with the cum load there.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Jovan's right.
That
It's
was
used to
actually
kind of
quite
increase the
brilliant.
immune response.
Yeah, and I was going to comment on that.
Yeah.
The reason that it's used as an adjuvant in that way is because it causes widespread inflammation.
You didn't even know that till you read it, faggot. You said it was
No, I did
preservative.
know that.
You
It is
didn't
a
say,
preservative.
Yeah, but you didn't say the other reason. You only named one reason.
Well, so?
I asked you why
That
did they
doesn't mean I
put it in
wasn't aware
there.
of
If you
that.
say, well, they put it in there because of this, then you're wrong.
Yeah, all
Because
right, dumbass. And now I'm explaining to you why they put it in there as
yeah,
an
you
adjuvant,
didn't know it was an adjuvant.
which you didn't know. Did you think I just looked that up? I didn't.
What do you-
I've known
I'm the
this.
one that said it. What do you mean I didn't
Veyd,
know?
he just
You
told
had to
that
look it
before
up,
you even
Jovan.
commented on
You
it.
looked it up.
God, he's an idiot.
You have been reading off of some bullshit that you looked up.
I
because
just
you
looked
don't-
it up because
That's
you
right,
tried
you
to
just looked it
dispute
up.
my claim
You
earlier.
just looked it up, Jovan, because you weren't aware of it. I was aware of it, and now I'm giving
Is he
you
really this
additional
stupid?
information about why
There's a
aluminum is
different
put in
awareness and
vaccines.
informed.
Is he really
and
this
Jovan,
stupid?
I'm telling you that the reason that they put aluminum in a vaccine as an adjuvant is because it causes widespread inflammation.
Yeah,
Now,
thanks for telling Jovan something he told you 5 minutes ago, buddy.
He
Good
didn't.
work.
God, he's
He
an idiot.
didn't tell anybody that. Jovan
told-
did
he
not
did.
know. Jovan was not
Then
aware.
It's so
Veyd, explain
stupid.
why I heard him say
Joe-
that 5
I
minutes
heard-
ago.
literally heard
Jovan
him
did
say it.
not know why.
Veyd,
it's
explain-
an
This is
adjuvant.
so sad.
Jovan said it was an adjuvant. He doesn't know why it's an adjuvant, and I'm explaining to him
Keep
why.
moving the goalposts, buddy.
I'm not moving the goalpost. What I'm saying is that aluminum used as an adjuvant is because it causes widespread inflammation, which is negative to health. It not only increases the susceptibility of the immune system to those inactive viruses, but it also causes chronic conditions of inflammation, especially in children.
And well,
And there are
we went from
studies-
inflammation to chronic conditions. That's a big leap.
There are studies, right? There are studies that are showing that the development of lifelong inflammatory conditions is due to vaccination in childhood, and that we've seen this massive increase in something like it was like 9 or something vaccines in the 1980s to now it's I think it's over 20 now I think. And
guess what? We live a lot older now, and like a lot of kids don't die in cots.
So
because that used to be fun. Going to the cot in the morning, and go, oh shit, my fucking child died. That's why I have to have about 9 kids because 50% of them are going to die before they reach the age of 10.
Yeah. Well, all of my children are alive, so.
That's
For now.
Modern medic.
Longer?
I want to
Yeah.
comment on this paper.
Spoilers:
One
your
that-
children will die at some
that Veyd
point.
dropped. So I'm looking at the conclusion, and all it's suggesting is that more research needs to be done on people with specific conditions where they're more sensitive to alum, right?
That's pronounced alum, but
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I've never said it out loud before. Alum, and I'm not really sure what the impact of this paper is supposed to present. Like it's saying that it's positing and it's giving these examples of ways aluminum could be more detritus than we thought, but they are not claiming that. They are presenting potential questions, right?
Yeah, great. So I'm not going to put aluminum in my child's bloodstream for any reason.
No, wait. I want to
Unless it's
concentrate
going to
on
save
this
their life.
paper. If this paper doesn't really matter, then I'll just drop it. But does this
It
paper-
does matter.
Okay, so-
I'm showing that as an example of the idea that this aluminum is deleterious in the brain.
Right, but
So-
you said it saves their life, right? So the vaccine saves their life. So
No, well, it's not
assuming-
saving their life. Preventative medicine isn't saving your life. and most of them.
What? That's the most hilarious thing I've heard you say all night.
If I stop a train from hitting someone, is that not preventing their life from ending?
Well, also the paper isn't
no,
really
no, no.
saying about
You're
aluminum.
so stupid. You're so dumb. The things
me?
you
No,
say
really,
are
I'm
so
not.
stupid. They're
But
not
me?
even funny. So like a train hitting somebody, like if somebody's
Oh, you're
standing
not
on
referring to
train
me.
tracks and a train is coming towards them, the train will hit them. But
Oh,
my
shit.
child living their life,
Right.
he's
Okay,
not
so-
going, or she is
so your
not
child-
going to
Damn,
be
these
back in
diseases are out in
disease.
the world, and your child doesn't get
Oh,
vaccinated.
Jovan,
These diseases have a
oh.
very good chance of hitting them.
A very
Right,
good
so there's
chance.
3 train
Jovan,
tracks,
what
and the
chance
train's going to
is
go
that?
down one of them, but you don't know which
Jovan,
one. Is it
can
not
you
easier
show
just
us
to get yourself off
Can you
all 3
show
train
us the
tracks?
incidence of the contraction of these diseases, Jovan?
The
Name the
paper.
Also,
specific
vaccine-
disease, and let's talk about before the vaccines were actually.
Let's talk
Do
about
any of your
the
children have the
development.
diseases or the syndromes this paper talks about?
Jovan, let's talk about mumps. How often did they contract mumps? And what's the incidence now?
Well, what's happening
Well,
right
it
now?
doesn't,
Yeah, I
it
got
doesn't
why is
matter
that voice
if I
coming out
may,
of his
right.
I think
microphone?
Veyd got
The fact of
possessed
the
by a
matter
ghost.
is, right, excuse
How
me.
is
If
this like
your
actually
child is
solving?
at school or whatnot, being not vaccinated with measles, and another child comes in with measles, what do you think the chances of that child comes in contact with your child's going to end up
Yeah,
with
my children
measles?
don't go to public
It's
school.
your child's never going to go to public school?
Never.
It's never going to engage with
Never.
other
Oh, so
children.
you're going to raise a bubble child. Well, then I guess it'll
Bubble
work.
child.
A bubble?
Well, yeah,
you
because
are
like
going to raise a bubble.
as terrible as school is, school does
Well, they're
teach you
going to grow
social
up to be
skills.
very sociable and well-adjusted, just like Veyd.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only reason. I mean, like you could teach kids every fact that you want in the world, but you cannot teach them social skills. Social skills is something they get
Public
and
school
learn
is
from school.
wonderful for the development of social skills, isn't
Wait,
it?
are you going to homeschool
Well,
them or
being
going to send them
that
to
their
private school?
measles, that the virus can stay airborne up to 3 hours, all you have to do is have your child pass through where someone's coughed or sneezed.
Yeah, I mean,
You can use
Are you
bus.
planning
You can
on
bus. You can pick it up.
homeschooling or private schooling your children?
I'm not talking about either of them. I'm talking about vaccines being dangerous.
Right, but if your response to the public school thing was they're not going to be public schooled, well, the same thing could happen in a private school, and it only works if you're going to homeschool, right?
It depends. I mean, private schools.
Well, it depends
have,
if you're gonna bring your kids
private
up in like a bubble
schools-
and not have any interaction with like any other human being.
Is there a private school where like the only requirement is you have to be healthy to join?
Private schools are a lot more concerned about the health of their students, and if they present with any illness whatsoever, they're sent home immediately. So,
Doesn't matter, child. You can
in fact, they can parents can
be.
be reprimanded for sending their children to school sick.
Yes.
Yeah, what about those diseases or sicknesses that don't express themselves till after the period where it'd be too late? Whoops.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
measles.
Uh-oh.
Measles, like
They
a spine
have
thing, like,
bioscanners at the
Oh, they've got really
obvious.
clean sinks in the bathroom. They've got really
Doesn't
good cleaners.
matter. It's airborne. It's sneezed and coffee. Measles is one of the most
They've
contagious
got special air in the private
diseases.
schools, Molly. They've got special air
Oh,
filters
well,
in the
shit,
private
I
schools.
wish I
They
would've
don't
gone
let
there
them
as a
mingle with the
child.
common folk, Molly. Don't worry. They'll be amongst the elite.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah, it's like the metal
let's pump
detectors at the black schools.
let's
They
just-
do it
yeah,
for-
they
just
work
pump
really
the
well as
kids.
well.
Let's
Fucking hell.
pump the kids full of all these fucking contaminants because oh no, they may get sick. Oh no.
No, they will get sick statistically.
They will get sick statistically. Like it's
No,
over.
no,
It's over a 50%
you've
chance that
bitten.
they
You've bitten. You
will
said statistically
get
they're going to get a
these
flu. They're not.
if they're not
No
vaccinated.
no one's going to live their life and not like have like
It's not a
any
question.
illness.
It's not a question of whether someone will get sick. It's a question of which school will get sickest, essentially. So, and you have no idea which ones will.
You mean like the concept of herd immunity? Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's one of the great things is I can allow all these people, right, who don't actually care about the health of their kids, pump them full of vaccines so that my kids don't have to.
Okay, no. I'm back. No, I'm backing up. Like, do you know what happened? Sorry, do you know what happened? Sorry, do you know what happened when kids didn't have vaccinations? they caught every fucking disease under the sun. You only have to look back like 50
yeah, really?
years.
That's a historical fact, huh?
Yes, that is fucking factual. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, I remember my grandpa telling me when he was a kid, he
quit interrupting with bullshit.
He just contracted every single fucking disease under the sun. I remember my grandpa telling me about
Thanks for the
that.
sarcastic remark.
Yeah, was it? Yeah. I'm just saying, isn't polio? Hasn't
If I
polio
can be
came
the
back?
devil's advocate for a second, how many of those kids die?
Yeah, exactly. How many of them died from fucking contracting pertussis?
Well, no, polio. You have to be.
None of
You have to be in a constant
have to die?
iron lung. So
meningitis.
yeah, we keep them alive, but they have to spend like 18 hours in an iron lung. So yes, yeah.
Iron lung for pertussis, dumbass.
No, polio.
Yeah, polio has been
Thing is, you're
eradicated.
talking about death, but they can end up with
How do you think polio was
issues
eradicated?
other than death simply from measles.
He just said polio was
Encephalitis,
eradicated.
toxic shock. Yeah. Yes.
How do you think polio
Well, no,
was
no,
eradicated?
it was. Polio was eradicated in the West until
Yeah. How does he
recently,
think that
where
happened?
like Silicon Valley people sort of say, no, we're not going to vaccinate our kids. Yes, polio's fucking back because of that.
Hey, Vayd, how do you think that was eradicated?
Oh shit!
Vaccination and public health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Vayd, what part of the method acting are you channeling at the moment? Is this the one where you do really badly? I mean, is that the point of this? Or I mean, what character are you portraying, buddy?
Oh, you think it's LARPing? Could be.
Polio's eradicated. Why would you be worried about that?
No, it's back. It's back. There's been I can post a link to it actually. There's places where
No. Because he said to someone else that
No,
polio was
and it's interesting.
eradicated.
Last
He
year,
was trying to make a point by saying that.
last year,
The
France-
vaccines are the reason they're
if I may-
eradicated.
Oh shit! We
Last,
should let
last
the
year,
lady.
France had to make vaccinations mandatory because the measles and other outbreaks were so rampant, with children and adults being hospitalized and being in critical conditions.
Yeah, and if you look at the reasons for that, it's immigration.
Okay, yeah, but you know
Okay,
these diseases.
right,
These diseases don't
okay.
stop.
Wait, hold on one
Yeah,
second.
I'll get lady. I'll
Okay,
get lady do this so I could do the argument about
regardless-
immigration.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. Okay, let's roll with that. But they're still coming in, right? And they still have these diseases because they were not vaccinated. So if your child is not vaccinated or an adult is not vaccinated, the increase in the chances of them contracting it are even
I don't live
higher.
in France, and I don't allow my children to play with immigrants.
Well,
so.
no, we're not about France. Like, you do know they're drilling into ice all the time, like in Greenland and stuff. And like, I don't care if you like don't believe in global warming. You can sort of do that. I don't think it's man-made, but global warming is actually happening. There's places in Greenland and places where ice have they're melting, and they're actually diseases that have been dead for thousands of years being released into the atmosphere. So, thankfully, they're not going to affect us because we've got millions of years of like immunity against these diseases. But if you're going to stop vaccinating kids against these like diseases, they're not going to be immune to them.
Well, actually, what you're saying is funny because we're not going to develop evolutionary resistances to these diseases because we're vaccinating against them.
There was an outbreak of measles in Wales just recently because there was an idiot decided to question the effectiveness of the MMR vaccination, and it had nothing to do with immigration. It's purely to do with stupid people stopping vaccinating their children.
Yeah, because you're not vaccinating a kid doesn't mean these diseases don't exist. These diseases do exist.
Who are you
all
preaching
around.
to? Who the fuck are you preaching to?
I
Me?
don't know. Probably you, but I don't even know why because I still think it's a conspiracy theory that you have a wife and kids. But
No, it never gets old.
no, it's like a child with cancer.
It's a calculated risk. There is a 100% fact of the matter.
Okay,
of
okay,
receiving
fair.
the vaccine and being exposed to contaminants.
Look,
I would
dude,
have.
I do not wish this on like anyone. But if you generally do have kids, what would you? How would you feel if one of your kids actually got polio one day?
Shut up. I would have no problem vaccinating my kids if I could verify conclusively or trust because of a long reputation of producing pure vaccines or clean vaccines. I would have no problem vaccinating my children.
Yeah, but most of the information you're talking about is pre-1999. Like, it's like it's almost like over.
I've been giving you studies all the way up to 2017.
Over 25 years fucking old. Well, no, 17 years old. A lot of the studies were saying, like, medicine.
Okay,
changes.
No, medicine is not magic, and these
but they
have gotten worse. They have gotten worse. The oversight has gotten worse.
Yeah, unless you have evidence to
These
provide.
are for-profit corporations.
Unless you have evidence that it would be different today.
At the lowest possible cost. So you think about like science and medicine as these magical, high-minded things that are just full of all of these incredible.
No. Because I'm from the generation where like they released them like morning after pill that stopped people from being sick, and
no dumbass.
Basically, it made fucking kids with like arms on stumps. Yes, I'm the fucking idiot.
These corporations do not view you as a person. You are a number. You are a profit.
Okay, like how can he make profit from a dead person?
Well,
no, come on, like you sort of saying like if these corporations want people generally dead because you can't make money from dead people. They want, but you said it's corporations. It's the corporations. Are you some sort of like concern?
No, dumb.
You starting to sound like a commie.
Fucking stupid.
Pingu, just let the guy
The
talk.
prices go down, might also because the technology makes it more efficient to make them. So the reason they're so cheap is because the companies have invested in ways of making them quicker and easier.
And they're subsidized.
Yes, and that as well. And it's not a case of they're all evil corporations. That's such a generalization. It's ridiculous.
Evil. I didn't make any ethical or
they're
moral
all corporate.
You did use that term.
You said they're all corporate entities. They're all out to use you
Yeah,
as a
but I
number,
didn't say
implying that they're
I did
evil.
not make any implications about their moral or ethical character.
Okay, so they're out
What
to
I
threaten
said
you in
was
some way.
that their profit motive is going to be such that they are going to seek the cheapest way to produce their product, and they don't.
They still have to meet a criteria of it being working.
Whether or not that interferes with the health of the people taking it.
Great, and of course, no one's ever going to check that they work, are they? No one's ever going to run stringent controls on it. No one's ever going to test them. No one's ever going to get them to have to pass certain rigorous
That's how
process.
we know
No
that
one
they're
in the
full of
industry,
contaminants because independent laboratories have
cares
examined them.
about human beings. No one in the
This
medical
is the
industry
level
got
of
into that.
stupidity in this room. Like this is the level of the low IQ fucking retards.
To be fair, you haven't shown modern vaccines being that contaminated.
Well, the one that I gave that showed all the contamination was a study from 2017.
I thought those were just the ingredients.
No, that wasn't the ingredients. The whole fucking column there was contamination.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
One column was whether or not the vaccine contained aluminum as an adjuvant, and the other column was all of the contamination that was found in it. Heavy metal.
I gotcha. My bad.
And this one wasn't even about biological contamination. That one was looking at elemental contamination. So that study didn't even cover all of the fucking other shit. And then I've linked to a number of studies. The one from Nature, I can't remember which one it was. Yeah, Nature. Don't ignore the risk of vaccine contamination. That one. That's a recent article.
Yeah, what's the context of the risk, though? It's like saying there needs to be some stuff done to
What's
it.
the risk of contracting one of these diseases and it being fatal?
Here we go. Like you're just jumping onto these like rhetorical arguments.
No,
again.
it's not
I'm
rhetorical. That's the actual calculus of risk that I take into consideration when determining whether or not I should vaccinate my children.
Seems very generalized. Like, there is a risk, therefore it's bad. It's like, yes, it is.
It's very real. The chance that my children are going to contract any illness for which there will be
one study that says it might be a risk
is exceptionally small to non-existent. If I administer a vaccine to my children, the chance that they are contaminated is 100%. Now, the degree of the contamination, that's debatable, and the effects that they may suffer, that's debatable. But what it can be said is that they will receive contamination and that it could have an effect on them. If they don't receive that vaccination, there will be no contamination and no negative effect.
Okay.
And
do you ever consider the risk of the
never contract an illness?
Well,
and if they were to contract an illness, most of the illnesses for which we vaccinate against are not going to have fatal consequences or long-term chronic problems.
Do you ever consider the fact that your beliefs are contaminating your child's mind in a negative way, and that's more of
You
a risk
mean
to them?
the scientific principle of precaution, the precautionary principle?
Of paranoia, of irrational risk assessment?
It's not paranoia, and I've both provided evidence and a rational argument.
No, he has. He actually has done like a critical thinking. I just think he's hasn't got the facts all correct. You don't think about correct
statement? No, he's claimed to make critical thinking. I can agree with the fact that he's come to the conclusion based on his assumptions, but I think his assumptions are wrong in the sense that he's essentially saying, well, there's a risk, therefore I'm not going to take it. And all we're saying is, well, have you considered the other risks in a balanced way?
Yeah, I've considered the other risks.
Yeah, I know you've considered them, but have you considered them in a balanced way? I don't think you have.
Yeah, I've considered them in a balanced way. That's what I was just describing to you, you fucking idiot.
Right.
So
I'm saying my rhetorical arguments. Yeah.
I linked a paper about deaths due to vaccinations, and it seems to be pretty conclusive that the deaths due to vaccinations are, well, very, very low.
Yeah, they're low.
Right.
Yeah, they're pretty low.
Well, I don't think he's talking about immediate death. Wouldn't it be like overall, like long-term effects?
No, there is both.
Veyd.
Stop.
Oh,
oh my God. There's like three main issues with vaccines. One is the acute death. I'm not necessarily too concerned about that because that is small, although that is a risk. I mean, that definitely factors into whether or not I want my child to be vaccinated. But that's not the biggest one. The biggest one are the negative cognitive effects of contaminating their brains with the shit that goes straight into the bloodstream.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was just about to point. Veyd, I know what I'm saying. Look,
stop talking now.
Look, I'm just trying to understand you.
I want Veyd to talk about his 3 points. So
I just want to understand it better.
Stop.
Afterwards.
So the third one, which is slightly less. I mean, for me, the biggest issue is the cognitive problems associated with these contaminants. The second one, which actually I should probably consider more critical, but the evidence is not conclusive yet on that, but is this development of chronic inflammatory conditions. And this is like the cutting edge, basically, of pathology, is that inflammation leads to diseases, that inflammation compromises the immune system and overall health, and that leads to the development of disease. And vaccines are now being shown to be a causative factor in chronic inflammation conditions. So what happens is that you get these contaminants in your bloodstream, and not only the contaminants, but also the inactive viruses, and not all of them. There's I can't remember which ones in particular, but not all of these inactive viruses create chronic inflammation conditions, but some of them do. And I'm sorry, I do not remember which ones they are. But basically, and it's not everybody also. It's only some people that have these immunological or inflammatory responses to vaccines that become chronic conditions. And there's a critical component.
I was going to jump in.
There is a critical component that it's the administration of these in childhood, because the endocrine system is still developing, and the introduction of these contaminants and these pathogens basically fuck their endocrine system up. It overloads
just out of curiosity, you said you had kids. Did you not allow your kids to eat dirt? I mean, like, that's the thing. I think with you personally, after listening to you for a bit, it's not the fact that, like, you need to eat or you have to consume a certain amount of, like, metal or virus to be dangerous. Just that he says, like, no, this is dangerous. Like, so it doesn't matter, like, how small amount that you have. This is dangerous, so they should have completely avoid it. So you said about, like, aluminium or aluminum. You're saying, like, any amount of aluminum, sorry, can't fucking pronounce it because we call it aluminium. You're basically saying that's dangerous. So it doesn't matter, like, if they have, like, 1 micron of it, or, like, couple grams, or you're basically saying like any amount of like aluminium is dangerous. So you're saying they should completely avoid it. I mean, that seems like
that's a straw man.
There's one thing I want to drop in here. I posted 2 links, right? There's 2, one with amyloid B immunization, increasing cognitive faculties in neonatal mice, and another paper that you can kind of ignore, except that it talks about the components of that, which includes aluminium.
What the fuck does this have to do with anything?
It shows that these immunizations that include aluminum.
Amyloid B immunizations are not part of the CDC immunization schedule for
That's
children.
not the point. That's not the point. The point is they contain aluminum, and your point is about aluminum. And these vaccinations increase cognitive abilities.
The amyloid beta.
I'm going to be really quick here, but your whole argument is saying like it goes into your brain and it doesn't leave your brain. So you're saying these metals go onto your brain and they don't leave. The other person's actually talking about like that's not really the case.
Did you even bother to look and see what you were actually talking about?
Me?
Yeah, you.
What did I get wrong on?
There's no aluminum in this vaccine.
The vaccination of Alzheimer's model mice with AB derivative and adjuvant reduces AB burden without macrophages, right?
Where does it say that?
It's the second link. The same immunization process. That's why I posted them together.
I'm reading it in the abstract.
It's throughout the rest of the paper.
I'm looking for aluminum.
Control F on most web browsers, unless you're on your phone.
He's not that intelligent.
Yeah, I just know that Control F is
Yeah,
for like
dude,
on a
this
desktop.
study that you posted, I just searched. There's nothing in this that talks about aluminum adjuvants.
It's in the second one. It's in the title. It says the vaccination of Alzheimer's model mice with AB derivative and alum adjuvant reduces AB burden without microhemorrhages. Right? It's like right there in the title.
I'm looking at amyloid beta immunization enhances neurogenesis and cognitive ability.
Right. The amyloid immunization process is described in the second paper.
Oh,
that's
I
why
didn't see that you posted.
Okay, no worries. But the second paper is the reason. The reason the second paper is there is to talk about the process and the alum adjuvants.
So have we ran this conversation into the ground, or are we going to still talk about it? Because I was kind of interested to talk about like that whole Canadian thing. He's like an incel, you know, the person that didn't get laid but blamed it on women. Interesting. I'm wondering people's views. Do you think that actually what was happened, or do you think the Canadian government's actually just lying about it?
Yeah, it's probably a false flag because most incels just have to throw porn in the basements. They don't go and kill people.
Well, I don't know.
Where are you seeing that it's aluminum adjuvant? It says it's QS21, which is derived from France.
We're not finished.
Which paper?
Vaccination of Alzheimer's model with mice and alpha beta. Amyloid beta derivative in alum adjuvant. Like this QS21 is not aluminum.
All right, let me get the.
I don't understand why that is in the title, because it says right here in the abstract.
Yes.
The meningoencephalitis observed in the first 80 vaccination trial was likely related to excessive cell-mediated immunity caused by the immunogen amyloid beta and the adjuvant QS21.
I mean, that's just
which is plant-derived.
adjuvant. It was just some adjuvants, right? Like there's multiple. And the title again talks about alum adjuvants.
Yeah, it says right here, the adjuvant QS21, which also promotes Th1 response, was used in the Alzheimer trial.
If you use only one can you only use one adjuvant, or can you have multiple adjuvants?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
assume
so
you
I
could
think
have
there's
multiple.
multiple. Yeah, so
But I'm reading this, and it's only talking about the QS21 adjuvant.
so this is you. The reason they're talking about that is because this is the important part for their study, right? But we don't care about that in our conversation. We only care that this is, as it says in the title again, it's an aluminum adjuvant. It has an aluminum adjuvant, right? Because we're talking about aluminum effects on the brain. Now, the first paper, again, talks about how this immunization process, which incorporates aluminum adjuvants, actually increases cognitive behavior in neonatal mice. Now, you could say that that's not going to work in humans. Sure, I don't have an argument against that. I don't think that data even exists, but we can't have a cut and dried.
Then you'd have to throw away all experiments on all mice.
No, it's actually it's further down. So,
but I'm going to ban briefly. But you know, the mice's brains chemically makeup are very similar to humans, so they make very good test subjects. Yes, it's not 100% like you try a drug on like a mouse, it's going to work 100% on like a human, but 95% of the time it will. That's why you go from like mice to like monkeys.
Yeah, well, anyway, everything I've been talking about so far is not even related to whether or not aluminum has a deleterious cognitive effect in humans.
To be fair, that was like a central point, though.
What else would it be then?
But
what else effect would you talk about aluminum having? Other than the inflammation?
Yeah, you're stupid.
But other than the inflammation cause.
So they actually...
Yeah, keeping people stupid is not a very good argument. You have to be a bit more articulate about it.
The adjuvant that they used is called AdjuFos, which is it's an aluminum phosphate. And maybe the phosphate form of it doesn't cleave into the brain. I don't know. I'm looking here. But anyway, so you're putting this, so you have a conceptual error here. These mice, right, like their cognitive performance is in an Alzheimer's model. So they're not talking about taking a healthy individual and then administering something to them and then seeing a cognitive increase. They're talking about a model of Alzheimer's. So these are mice that have Alzheimer's.
Well, they're predisposed to Alzheimer's. They don't have it on the onset.
Okay. Yeah. Predisposed to Alzheimer's, and they have a greater cognitive outcome than the non-vaccinated mice. That doesn't that doesn't mean to say that in a non-Alzheimer's model that, I mean, you to support what you're trying to say, you'd have to have a control group that was neither predisposed to Alzheimer's and was not given the vaccine.
The reason I think that this study is apt is the idea that aluminum in the brain would decrease cognitive function is shown in this case, where the mice the mice in this case don't start off with Alzheimer's. They have a predisposition toward them, so their brains are vaguely normal on the onset until later on.
Yeah, but the cognitive decline in the other population of mice is due to the accumulation of amyloid beta plaques, which the vaccine is preventing. So of course you would see an increase in cognitive performance in the vaccinated mice because they're not developing amyloid beta plaques in the brain that reduce cognitive function. That's not to say that the aluminum
that's fair, actually.
It's not to say that the aluminum adjuvant didn't have a deleterious cognitive effect. It's just that the amyloid beta plaques developing in the mice that were predisposed to develop Alzheimer's and did is, you know, less than that of, or more than that of the aluminum.
But I don't think the amalgamation, though, was actually affecting neonatal cognitive functions. That was supposed to happen later, right?
I don't even see that was controlled for here. I don't think that there's a baseline of cognitive function.
Was supposed to decrease later, right? Because we have the accumulation that's supposed to happen throughout the mouse's life.
I don't think they were even measuring cognitive, but they didn't establish. That's what I said. They didn't establish a baseline of cognitive function. You know.
They not? Hold on. They must have.
Relative in the Alzheimer's, yeah, to the mice that had amyloid beta plaques.
But the that specific problem, again, I think, doesn't affect mice that like that, or it don't affect these mice that hard until later in life. At least that's what it says in the behavior section.
So
I mean,
is
you
there a
two
section?
still
Okay,
call.
maybe I missed it. Okay, I didn't read the whole thing. Are you saying that they were talking about neonatal mice having had received the vaccine and having higher cognitive function than the non-immunized mice before the development of amyloid beta plaques in the brain?
No. What I'm saying is the aluminum did not contribute any cognitive deficiency to the mice.
Well, I mean, for one, if it's just a single vaccine, that may be true. For one,
well, you
the
did say that any amount is bad, right? And they didn't.
Yeah, any amount of aluminum in the brain is going to have a deleterious effect, right? Yeah, it's just that's just true. I'm not saying that, and this is why what that other guy was saying was so fucking retarded. Obviously, if you've got a few fucking ions of aluminum kicking around in your fucking brain, no big deal, right? But we're not talking about just a few ions of aluminum. We're talking about a lot of aluminum, especially when you receive a lot of vaccines. These mice, if they're just given one vaccine of this aluminum phosphate, which again, the phosphorylated form of aluminum, may prevent it from depositing in the brain to such a degree. I don't know, but I know that the type of aluminum used in human vaccines is not aluminum phosphate. So there may be something about aluminum phosphate. It may just be that the vaccine was the concentration of it was very small because they only needed a very small amount. I don't know. There's just so many confounding factors here that this doesn't support what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and the one atom argument's also the continuum fallacy.
There are so many anti-vaxxer websites to learn about aluminum phosphates, and
Yeah, I know it sucks. So you really just go to Science Direct or Elsevier and just search for things like vaccine or adjuvant or aluminum vaccine or whatever.
That's a smart move.
Google is practically useless these days for anything that's even slightly controversial.
It's a real shame.
I think it seems like, according to this paper, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to paste it, that aluminum phosphates are worse.
I don't know. I haven't examined any of that.
There's the paper that I'm looking at.
I guess that would make sense since phosphines they're scavenging for ions. So they would, that phosphine would break off, which is why it would be such an effective adjuvant, because it would interact with the pathogenic shit a lot easier. Yeah, well, that makes more sense. But yeah.
So a vaccine's good or bad?
I still think they're incredibly good. I haven't really been swayed that the amount of vaccines that you, or the amount of aluminum that you get through the vaccine treatment or the vaccine suite of the amount of the amount of vaccines that you get is enough to affect cognitive behavior to any noticeable amount.
Well, why do they even need to put that in there? Right? Is that a preservative or what? Is it
look
active?
up adjuvants.
Immune response.
So the adjuvant is to provoke an immune response, and that's what the aluminum is used for?
Also as a preservative. Yeah, it has dual function. I might have more that I'm not aware of, but I only know those two.
Okay, so my daughter has a vaccine injury, so that's where this is coming from. The way it was explained to me is that it's not the amount of aluminum that's in the vaccines, it's how the individual body processes those. My daughter has a seizure disorder caused by vaccines. And they said it was just her body has a higher baseline of metals, and any additional metals puts the brain into overload, and that's why she has seizures. So she's medically exempt from them. She also has a MTFR, which I posted in the chat. It's kind of a genetic abnormality that really just is kind of a common factor with vaccine injuries and reactions. But while my daughter is vaccine injured, I am pro-vax.
Did you seek any kind of recompense from the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program?
I did not, because they wanted to, the way that they work with even the medical exemptions is, so they came to me and they were like, so can we put your child into a research lab, inject her with vaccine and see if she dies? And if she, if she has a reaction, we'll pay you money. And I wasn't comfortable doing that. I wasn't.
That's one of the most evil things I've ever heard.
That's not what the VIC. I'm a little bit skeptical of your claims here, lady. But the VICP is it's basically the no-fault court system specifically for vaccine injured people.
Okay. Yeah, hers, that was from a research, pretty much an organization, which I later found out was just anti-vax, and that's all. They didn't really care about research. They just wanted everybody to think that vaccines were evil. And basically they wanted to use my kid as a guinea pig and whatnot. No, I did not go about doing the compensation because my daughter's case was not good enough documented, and a lawyer advised me that I would have lost.
Well, then maybe she wasn't vaccine injured because, well, I don't know. I mean, it's something like 30 to 40% of people who file get compensation. So I mean, like, what do you mean it wasn't documented?
Because the way it was documented as far as her ER visits, her doctor's appointments and such like that, there was probable cause that her reactions were like, if it was gone in front of you guys, even, you could be like, well, you can't definitively say that vaccines did this.
Didn't say that about anything.
You can tell me that all day long, and that's absolutely fine. But I know what happened with my daughter. It just, whenever they first started happening, I did not think that it was the vaccines. And so I went a route that was not to the vaccine issue.
Yeah, that's one of the really scary things for me, is that a lot of these parents, who they swear that their child was changed by a vaccine. It's kind of like subjective things, which are really difficult to quantify.
There's no trends, though, right?
Well, no, I'm talking. Listen, like parents say that they just saw a change in their child after they were given a course of vaccines, and usually it's things like symptoms of ADD. Like before, a child was really interested in books and had a high attention span and things like that, and then after the vaccines they became frustrated more often and they didn't read as much, and they got became angered more often, things like that. These kinds of things are subjective, that only a parent would know. Only a parent would know that there's a change in their child from how they were day to day before and after the vaccine. And the thing is that those things are impossible to prove. You can't prove that a vaccine caused these behavioral changes. It's impossible. But that's not to say that there wasn't a change in their cognitive ability or behavioral or their behavior before and after a vaccine.
Yeah, if I might, I know that she my being in the medical field and whatnot, and there was a lot of back and forth, and parents coming forward and saying, my child was had and whatnot. And I absolutely believe and agree that there are going to be instances where a child is going to have a negative reaction to a vax. Some of them are going to be mild. We really don't know, the full effect of what some vax can do to some children. As I said, you have a foreign matter entering the body. There is going to be a percentage of people that are going, and children that are going to have a negative reaction to that vaccine. So it sort of becomes like a double-edged sword. And I can't fault you, Vayd, for having your concerns regarding vaccinating your children. My only issue with it is having been in other countries and places where they were not vaccinated and seeing that the effects that these childhood diseases can have on them. And I know you keep saying, the percentage of them dying. Well, that's only the far end spectrum of what can happen to a child who's not vaccinated or an adult and does end up getting measles, and other such diseases.
Yeah, I mean, hold on.
One thing that I think gets lost in these debates is it's not always a child does perfectly fine or a child dies. There is that middle ground where my family lines
exactly, and that's what I was saying. That some people say there's that thing, like you said, there's from being perfectly okay to dying. Well, you have everything that happens in between, and it's just like with any other thing. People will take medication, some will do well on them, some will have an adverse reaction. What their adverse reaction is going to vary. Some are going to be mild, some are going to be severe. Can you always pinpoint that it was the vaccination or it was the medication that caused that? Sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot.
Yeah.
Right, but I think it goes down to something like a scenario that needs to be considered is, yes, you can give your child that vaccine, but when you do, you're taking the chance that they're going to be perfectly fine and have that immunity, or they won't be perfectly fine. And these are lives that are at stake here. It's like, if I had known the possibilities, I would have done them one at a time with my daughter and maybe nothing would have happened. I don't know. She was on schedule for the first 6 months, and it was at the 6-month appointment where she got 4 different shots that started it all. And maybe if I had spaced it out, that was ignorance on my part. I just did what I was told. And it wasn't until something happened that I even bothered to look into it.
How long till after the 4 shot? How long till after the 4 shots did you start having?
I'm sorry?
How long after the 4 shots did she start having a seizure?
Well, 2 hours after her appointment, I had to call an ambulance because she was turning blue. And when they got there, her fever was 103.7.
Could that have been an allergic reaction to it?
Yes, it was an allergic reaction. That was this whole part, but the rest was separate from that initial reaction. That seizure that she had was a febrile seizure, nothing more. That's not connected to her seizure disorder. That was because her temperature jumped so high so fast, which is a common
because of her
reaction.
allergy, right? So how long after that did you have another seizure?
She had a seizure every 3 minutes overnight, and then didn't have one for 17 days, and then she started having them every single
Wait, that
day.
was that night she had a seizure every 3 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. But I feel like I don't see how that can be directly related to
But I will say that this is not everyone. This, people need to be vaccinated.
Wait, how are they going to say that that's not a... Well, I guess they're going to say it's the allergic reaction, not
What they said is because a temperature is a listed side effect, febrile seizures go with it. So it's all normal, it's normal.
Yeah, but after it kept happening and happening, what did they say about that?
They classified it as a basic seizure disorder. We were then sent to 2 different neurologists. And then it was the neurologist that sent me to the immunologist, who they kind of teamed up with her. And she just is unlucky and genetically unlucky. I don't think that anybody should be scared into not vaccinating because of what has happened to her, because she needs people to be vaccinated because she cannot.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't be
Yeah, same with my
anti-vax.
kids. My kids need all these fucking herd people to have their kids vaccinated so that my kids can't have them.
Right.
Yeah, because you're a piece of shit.
No, I'm not a piece of shit. I just love my children. Also, vaccines, the highest efficacy is about 85%. Depending on the vaccine, the efficacy is anywhere between 44 at the low end to 85%. So it's like you're taking risks and you're introducing contaminants, and you may in fact be causing chronic lifelong conditions. And again, like I said, this whole stuff about vaccines causing chronic health issues due to inflammation because it taxes the endocrine system in youth, which causes a lifelong predisposition to inflammatory conditions, right? Like, that's cutting edge. That's the newest science on the development of disease and the relationship to vaccines. So you're taking all this risk on, and you're at best getting an 85% efficacy rate. And that's just assuming that you will be exposed to these diseases that you otherwise would have contracted and had massively bad reaction to. So in the calculus of constructions here of whether or not it's smart to get vaccines, the only argument that can be made, right, is not on the individual level, but is on the herd level. That as a public health thing, that we won't have widespread outbreak of these diseases. On the individual level, there is no rational argument that can be made for vaccination. You're better off without a vaccine than with. Yeah, people who think that are stupid. No, that's not. I've already substantiated what it is that goes into these things, the concentrations that are in them, the negative effects of those substances when they cross the blood-brain barrier, and then compared that with the efficacy of the vaccine, which at its highest is about 85%, and then combine that with the fact that most people, most of the time, will never even contract any of these diseases, vaccinated or not. No. No, not always. Not always. I mean, it does reduce the incidence of these, but no, I did, dumbass. I did. I said that the only argument that can be made of the efficacy of vaccines is the herd immunity argument. No, not the individual argument, because even without herd immunity, even without herd immunity, right? The chance that you would contract one of these diseases is small. I mean, something like chickenpox is going to be common, but
chance of you getting cancer is small.
Chickenpox is not something that you need to worry about.
What the chances of contracting some shit is, like, not an argument.
It is an argument,
that's a hard
dumbass.
claim to make because the chances of you getting a disease is higher in different areas of the world.
His son is going to have to fucking pray that when he goes to another country, he doesn't contract the disease.
Well, if we were to travel overseas, then we would get vaccinated. Why is that funny?
It's just hilarious.
Why?
Why would I have to explain why something's funny?
Because it isn't funny. There's no
That's
humor in that.
subjective. Are you
If we
retarded? Are
were
you
to
saying it's an
travel
objective? Are you
overseas-
saying that's an objective thing?
Yeah, it's objective because
I agree.
Humor's objective. Hell yeah.
yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is an objective thing because the idea that we wouldn't take vaccines if we're staying in our home country within a population of people who are vaccinated with high hygiene, right? Like that makes sense. And if we're traveling overseas to somewhere where there is a higher exposure to pathogens and lower hygiene, that it would be more intelligent to get vaccinated if we're going to be in a high risk environment. I don't see the humor, dumbass.
I find it funny.
Oh, okay.
I also find it funny that you find humor objective. It's hilarious.
My assumption is that my children will probably end up thanking me for not getting vaccinated because as the science progresses on the relationship of vaccine in early childhood and the development of chronic inflammation, which is the breeding ground of disease, that they'll be a lot happier that they weren't vaccinated. And of course, when they're, 15, 16 or whatever, and they can make rational decisions about the course of their own care, they can get vaccinated if they want.
Yeah, they'll still be autistic though.
Yeah, yeah. It's an evolutionary adaptation.
No, it means when they're 16, they'll be autistic. They're your son.
Now, if the incidence of these diseases in the general population were